you everyone for joining us today. My name is Demetria Blair. I am the Violence Prevention Manager here in Lexington, Kentucky with CHI St. Joseph Health. I am joined today by our Violence Prevention Manager in Berea, Kentucky, who implements our Green Dot program for middle and high school youth in Madison County. The Green Dot program has been a part of our violence prevention portfolio since 2014, and we continue to seek to reduce violence in that community, to reduce bullying in that community through our grant program. We are also joined by Kelly Cawley, who is our violence prevention manager in Bardstown, Kentucky. Hello, Kelly. And who also implements the Green Dot program. And we are also joined by Sherry Craig, who is the Market Vice President for CHI St. Joseph Health as well. So we are very pleased to be here to introduce the Green Dot Stop on Green training for the community. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Brian, who will lead us in today's training. Thank you.
My computer will function with me here. Here we go. So I'm going to get going with you guys. If you hear some reverb, I apologize. Keith and I are in the same room here. So we are kind of multitasking today. We've been in one of our schools today doing some training. So we're doing a lot today. So I appreciate your patience getting started today. So first off, can everybody see my screen? Okay, awesome. So I'm going to try to get that up here. All right. So as we go through this, what I want to do is just do an overview with you guys today and introduce the program. And I appreciate you giving us the opportunity and the time to do so. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and actually turn over to Keith. I'm going to let him kind of do the introduction part here. And then, Kelly, if you want to interject at any point, let us know. And otherwise, we can kind of keep going and I'll close this out. So Keith, I'm going to turn it over, buddy.
Thanks, Brian. I hope you guys can hear me. We're getting a little bit of reverberage here. Phones are ringing, so bear with us. So just to introduce ourselves, my name is Keith Stewart. Everybody asks us, what is Green Dot? Green Dot's a violence prevention program that we talk about bullying, dating violence, sexual assault, cyberbullying, and racism as well, with a emphasis especially on the college level with stalking and rape. Now, with the high school and middle school, we do not talk about those specific things with those harsher language. We don't implement those type of programs with middle school and high school programs, as you can see on your screen here. We go with the teachers training program. Before we start our program, we want our teachers to be on board, right? So if we don't get the buy-in from the teachers and the principals and police officers, then our program doesn't work. So before we implement anything into our schools, we want to make sure we have the buy-in from our teachers, right? With that, we show them the classroom module. Like I said, we have to get the buy-in from the principal. So without the classroom module, if the principal doesn't buy into that, into his curriculum, his or her curriculum, then they will not allow us into the schools, okay? So specifically, we focus on student bystander training. We don't focus on the perpetrator nor the victim. So we try to teach our peers to, if you see something, do something, right? I've got an old saying, the cost of waiting is too high, right? So if the kids don't do anything, it's telling the victim and the perpetrator that it's okay, right? So our program specifically focuses on the bystander training, okay? We also do parent and community workshop. We do a lot of stuff with the program, with our community, right? We had an Easter egg hunt. We do things with the basketball, football programs. We actually, this year, we have our Green Dot logo on the official basketballs, KAHA approved green dot logo on the basketballs, football, etc. So that's going to be visible. You can see them on television as well. And those are in Berea community, as well as Madison Southern. So the parents are aware of what we do and how we do it. And everything that we do as far as the community is concerned, we do implement the parents into our workshop, because without their participation, the program doesn't work. And as you can see here on your screen, the problem, bullying, dating, violence, sexual assault, it's happening in our schools. The kids here, they don't really care what happens nationally, statistics. They want to know what's going on in their school here, right? So these numbers you can see: bullying 85%, dating violence 75%, sexual assault 60%. This was before COVID. So you can see those numbers are extraordinarily high. So again, we focus on bystander intervention, and we try to culture change is what we're looking for. So we want that culture change to change every year that we go through. And we ask the kids, what is culture change? What does that look like? So we give them an example of Mark Zuckerberg, of how to change Facebook. Facebook just didn't happen within a couple of days. It took Mark Zuckerberg over a course of years, right, for culture change to happen. So on a micro level, we kind of implement the Green Dot program. Like I said, we want to go upstream, and we want the kids to understand that. Yeah. So absolutely. So you can see right there, it doesn't take 2 minutes to make a culture change, right? Mark Zuckerberg, it takes years for us to implement our programs and for people to understand on a micro level on how to make that happen, right? We don't have a big budget to where we can go out here and make a big concert. So we have to do things on a micro level, and that's getting into these schools. You can imagine at schools where we ask kids, where do these violence happen? Football fields, classrooms, in the gym, blah, 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 etc. And we show these kids, we show them like red dots that pop up, and they give us specific examples of where red dots pop up, right? Sorry about that. There it is. So you can see the first three power-based personal violence right here: dating violence, sexual assault, and bullying. These three things are difficult for some, right? Especially, the dating violence and the sexual assault part. A lot of kids don't want to talk about those issues. So it takes on a personal level to talk about these power-based personal violence for some kids. So in our class, it's really, really important for kids to understand that other kids are going through the same thing that they're going through. So it's just really important for those kids to see that. And as you can see right here, the moment that it takes to hit someone, the single choice of having sex with someone without their consent, those are all things that are red dots. And these are some of the things that will threaten someone livelihood, right? I mean, especially to a young lady. So we want to point these things out. And yeah. And here you can see it's not one single choice that causes one, right? You can see the green dots popping up, and that's kind of what we're looking for. We want the green dots to cover the red dots. So every green dot that you see, we want to be proactive in our efforts to cover up the red dots. And proactive, we think about it as this way. We want to prevent things from happening. We want to talk about it in a way like we want this to be preventative medicine. Instead of reacting all the time, we want to be in a proactive mode here. And as you can see right there, what is reactive? You don't want to be reactive to every single violent thing that happens at your school. You'll always be in red dot mode. Okay. for every red dot, you don't want to go down to the hallway and extinguish another fire. You want to be proactive in your efforts to, why did this happen? Was there anyone there to stop this from happening? Right. So we want to be proactive in our green dot. Okay. So we asked our kids, what are some of the things that you can do in a reactive green dot example, right? What are some of the things that I could do? You can interrupt the situation, confront the person doing the behavior, or just check in with the person that's in harm's way. And one of those ways we do that is telling them about the 3 Ds, right? So, right, and we can also identify kids that are maybe a red dots happen either at school or at home or anything like that. We can see students' grades drop, or they're afraid to leave class, or just typical behavior. Someone might be happy and joyful, and then you see their mood or their behavior change, right? And this is true for each individual peer, right? And then you talk about personal barriers for some students, right? Barriers is really, really difficult for some kids. You have personal barriers, you have social barriers. So kids don't want to, let's see, they don't want to intrude on their own peers, right? Because that's their friends, or that's someone that they know. Maybe that's one of their loved ones, right? So they don't want to break that barrier down because that's one of their friends. So personal barriers is really, really tough for every kid that's going through it. Brian teaches us all the time. He's very introverted, right? So a lot of kids are that way. So a lot of kids connect to that being introverted. Like I said, relationship barriers as well. Some kids are just plain just afraid that someone will get mad at them, right? So they don't want that. They don't want that fear of people not liking them. So that's a barrier within itself. And social barrier, right? We say this all the time: snitches get stitches, right? Kids grow up nowadays, they don't want to tell, or they don't want to snitch. They don't want to go to their resource counselor or the principal, right? In fear of repercussions of what their friends might be, what they might do to them. Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and take over from here. And so we talk about the 3 Ds. So we talked about the barriers of people and how they, thanks, Keith. So we talk about the barriers and how a lot of times these kids struggle to intervene or do anything. So we talk about bystander intervention. And with the bystander intervention, we have to find ways to get these students around their barriers. We're told in life that we have to get through our barriers. You have to overcome your barriers, but in reality, we can't do that. And so we give these options, the 3 Ds, as opportunities for students to get around their barriers and to really make a difference. So we have direct, and really that's just handling a situation yourself, going up to the situation and saying, hey, what's happening is not okay. And with that can be with the perpetrator or the victim. And so we focus on making sure that these students understand different ways that they can directly intervene without putting themselves in harm's way. Then we have, we have the opportunity for students to delegate. And what that's basically talking about is going to a trusted adult or to their peers. We really talk about peer influence with our students. And that basically means that, what they're able to do is interact with other students and say, hey, your friend is not acting the way they should, or hey, your friend's about to get in a fight, you may want to go stop that. And so there's more influence from the peers than there are from, necessarily from teachers or even us as the people doing the program. We understand that the students are the ones who have the influence. And so we talk about taking ownership of the program and doing what they're supposed to do to intervene. And then we talk about delegating. distracting. And so this is just something that's easy for some kids. They don't want to directly intervene and go up and say, hey, what you're doing is not okay. So we talk about opportunities for them to get involved and say, go up to a couple that's arguing in the lunchroom and say, hey, I forgot to do my homework last night. Do you have the answers? Or, hey, did you see that game last night? The playoffs are going on for baseball right now. And so there's a lot of exciting things they can talk about and distract the situation from getting worse. And so one of my favorite stories to share with distracting is when I did my original training in Louisville several years ago, they talked about a girl who was walking in the hallway, and there were two football players about to get in a fight. And this young girl who's, 5 foot nothing, not even 100 pounds, she's like, what am I supposed to do to intervene in this situation? And so she happened to be a gymnast, and she started doing cartwheels around the two guys that were about to get in a fight. And she was able to distract from the situation. The two dudes were just like, what's going on right now? And she was able to diffuse the situation using a skill that she had. And so that's something that we try to introduce to our students too. It doesn't have to be this big deal, but you definitely have an opportunity to use your skills and use, something that you're more comfortable with to intervene. And so, one of the things too, that we like to do is when we talk to our students, we share our green dots and say, what they did, how they did it. We talk about their barriers and then which of the 3Ds they use. So these are tools that we share with the students as we go through to encourage them and say, hey, I did this. This is just how I handled the situation. And talk about ways, because a lot of these students witness the same things. So this is an opportunity for them to come and share what they did and to support each other and give ideas as well. And so, we talk about the red dots and we talk about, doing reactive green dots, but proactive is really that mode that we want to be in, like Keith was saying earlier. And so, we kind of joke around with our students and we say, really, our program should be green dot, it should be green blob, because in essence, what we're wanting to do is, get this idea into the schools of violence is not okay and it won't be tolerated. And being proactive in that, we can make sure that we're not staying in that reactive mode all the time. And so we want to stop things before they happen. And we use this phrase quite often. It's not something that we have to necessarily have conversations about all the time or keep in the forefront, but we have to make sure that people know that violence is not okay with us and everyone's expected to do their part. And so there's different ways that we do that. Being proactive, we know that social media is very impactful in our students' lives. Many of the students we work with really kind of live and die by social media, what the different trends are and how they're doing things. And so we encourage our students to use their social media presence to encourage people to, do violence prevention efforts. And so they can post videos, or if they know a story, they can share it. And of course, when we talk about wear green dot things, one of the things we do with our students is we have goodie bags that we give to our students, and they have pens, pencils, lanyards. We do hoodies and t-shirts and hats and all kinds of stuff to really market what we're doing. And part of that is to motivate our students to want to be part of our program, but also to let people know, hey, we're in Green Dot. And it's really been surprising to me over the years. Something that I've really noticed is other students who haven't been trained in Green Dot actually really hold our students accountable. So for instance, there was a situation in one of our schools about the second year that we were doing implementation, where there was a young girl in the locker room in gym class who was really having some bad suicidal thoughts and was just really in a bad place. And there were other students around that didn't know what to do. And so they actually went to one of our Green Dot students and said, hey, you're trained in Green Dot, you need to go handle this situation. And the student was very, calm and collected and went up and said, hey, I'm going to stay with this person, you go get the counselor. And they really were able to make what would have been a very bad situation. They were able to stay under control and handle it the right way because of their training with Green Dot. And that's something that we see over and over is the students who are trained are really held to an expectation that they do something about whatever's happening. And so part of what we do too is we talk about supporting others and acknowledging others when they do green dots. Really, we have those barriers to not do it. We don't want to be embarrassed or whatever, but when we support each other in that green dot, then we're empowering others to want to do it too. And so we ask the question all the time, if a new student joined my group, whether it's a team, friend, just came to school, how would they know that it's not okay with me and they're expected to do their part as well? And so many of our students are very forward with this and just say, hey, we're going to have a conversation with them. Welcome to the school, and say, hey, this is kind of how we do things here. And so it's really nice to have our students so proactive about it in the way that they're handling when new students come here. And so one of the biggest things that we do, we want students to understand there's always a choice. There's always something that they can do with this. And the 3 Ds give them that option. At the very least, we talk about checking in with people, and we talk about, if very least you can delegate to somebody, tell an adult. And if it's if their safety is concerned, we talk about making sure that they keep themselves safe, and, delegate to a police officer. We have school resource officers and people who are in place to handle those situations. And so we make sure we cover those things as well. And I'm going to close with these 3 things right here. These are 3 of the things that really mean a lot to me when we're talking about Green Dot. The first is take a second look. There's so many things that we go through our daily lives, and we're not sure, is this really a bad situation, or is this something that maybe it's just 2 friends giving each other a hard time? So we talk about taking a second look and making sure that, okay, yeah, that's something that shouldn't be happening. I'm going to do something about it. Or, okay, that's just 2 friends giving each other a hard time. I don't have to do anything about it. The check-in piece is something that really, it's simple, it's easy, but it can mean so much to somebody. So many of our students at the end of the day, like when I grew up, that 3 o'clock bell rang and I was ready to go home. Like, let's get out of here. Let's go do whatever. But so many of our students are not looking forward to that bell because of their home life, their situation that they're dealing with at home. And so it can mean so much to students to say, hey, how are you doing today? Or, hey, I saw what happened. Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? Or, hey, why don't we go talk to a counselor about this? And I'm going to share just a quick story with you guys that hit me pretty hard a few years ago. This story was circulating around on Facebook, and it goes like this. A young man was leaving school one day. He had cleaned out his locker. He had all of his books, and he was walking home. And on his way home, these 3 other guys came and they push him down. They knock his books down, knock his glasses off, and they're making fun of him, giving him a hard time. And so luckily, another kid saw what happened and said, hey, man, I'm sorry that happened to you. Let me help you out. And so they start walking together and find out that they live close to each other. And the young man invited the kid who had been bullied. He's like, hey, man, I got some buddies coming over this weekend. Why don't you come hang out with us? And so they started a friendship. And for the sake of time, I'll fast forward. Over the 4-year period of high school, they become great friends. And this student had been bullied, ends up being the valedictorian. And he ends up sharing a story about friendship in his graduation speech. And he talks about how, you don't really know how much your friendship can mean to somebody. And he goes back to that day and he shares the story of when they became friends and how he was carrying all of his books home. He cleaned his locker out and was carrying everything home. But the reason he was doing that is because he was going to kill himself, and he didn't want his mother to come and have to clean his locker out at school. And so basically, one person took the time to check in on another person and said, are you okay? Not only did they get a friendship out of it, but he, in essence, saved his life. And so we share that with our students that, you check in with somebody, that you could be the only person who shows that you cared. And so it means so much. Just check in on people, ask how they're doing, and if you can help. And then lastly, I'll share, what if it was somebody I loved? And Keith and I, we both have children who have special needs. My son has cerebral palsy and epilepsy. He just went through brain surgery a few months ago, and thank the Lord, he's doing great. But he can't do things that other kids can do. And so there's that opportunity for other kids, because he's different, to make fun of him or give him a hard time. And I think about that situation of, if my son is going through a situation and there's a bystander there that can help and do something about it, if they don't, how does that make me feel? And so we try to frame that for the students to understand, what if that was somebody you loved and cared about and nobody intervened to help them out? And so we try to keep these three things in mind. These are the most important keys that we talk about with our students to make it personal and make it real. We always talk about our students, signing up and how they can get involved. But that's kind of, in a nutshell, that's our training. And so we wanted to kind of give you guys an opportunity to share or ask questions, or talk with us a little bit. And Kelly, if you'd like to speak as well about how you do things, I'd like to give you that opportunity as well. So thank you for the time today, and I'll stop.
I'll share that we do a brief overview with all of our freshman health classes at each one of the high schools in an effort to kind of introduce them to the program right off the bat, so that they know what Green Dot is and understand the expectations that have been being taught at the school for several years. Our in-depth trainings are offered to our classrooms, usually hold 20 to 25 students per training, and we do 4 to 5 of those per year at each of our high schools. They are all day, 6-hour full program trainings to really get them in there and immerse them into an interactive process so that they really do understand what it is they're up against and how it relates to them and their friends, and what scenarios that they really are in, and how they truly can change the world just by the little things that they do every day. One of the things I'll mention is I actually go kind of in depth at the very beginning about what is bullying. What do you see as bullying? What is the true definition? And is what we see happening that you report as bullying, is that really bullying? Is there really violence that's taking place, power-based personal violence? Or is it that somebody needs to just learn to say stop? Or I don't like that. And so if you will stand up for yourself sometimes, that you have to remember that it's not really bullying if you haven't told them you don't like it. And if you're not contributing to it in a lot of situations. So we try to, go over some of those definitions and really let them understand what that is and how they can handle some of those situations themselves. I also talk about the fact that videotaping or standing back and oohing and on and cheering somebody else on while something is taking place is actually making you one of the offenders as opposed to a good bystander. So what is a good bystander? How can you intervene in such a way that it's going to make a difference to the other people and to the person being assaulted in some way? So we really want to get those two things across, because if they don't see how it relates and they don't see how they can make a difference, then they're not going to. They're just not going to step in. So we do talk a bit more about dating violence and sexual assault in the Nelson County area, because there have been several incidences that have contributed to some concerns in the area in those two particular situations. So we talk about what that looks like and how you can stand up for your friends and how you can help them out in those kinds of ways as well. High school parties, those kinds of things, because Nelson County is not like Fayette County. It's a very small community. We don't even have a movie theater anymore for kids to go to and hang out. So what they end up doing is showing up at people's houses and having field parties and those kinds of things, which can get out of hand because there's not any type of adult supervision and nobody standing around giving any input that would be good guidance. So we talk about what can some of the things that you can do when you're in those kinds of situations to better implement what we would want to be considered Green Dot's proactive and reactive in a good way. We do a lot of community events, again, those adult trainings, making sure the parents understand what Green Dot is so that they can kind of reemphasize some things at home, ask the right questions, put them in the right scenarios. We're using and working with our cooperative extension office through UK to implement some of those adult trainings and community trainings throughout our community as well. We in particular have a large 5K plan for the spring. That is a way that all the high schools can come together. We're doing it actually at the hospital so that they can become aware of some of the other services that we as a hospital offer for the community, and in a lot of different areas, in a lot of different ways, and to tie the green dot to our actual job and who our grant funders are paying for this program. But it's also neutral territory because we've got 5 different high schools and 2 or 3 different middle schools that all students from all of those consider themselves not enemies of, but big competitive in all sports and athletics and you name it, and academics, and the schools are very competitive with each other. And so this is a way to get them all to come together and understand that they all live in the same community regardless of what school you go to, and that it's all contributing to one big happy family or good culture that's taking place and going on. I actually am working the football game Friday night, which is the Pride Bowl for the county. So it's the 2 biggest high schools in our county competing against each other. And we've got a booth set up to share information with students and parents about what Green Dot is and how they can implement that in their community at the football game to hopefully lessen some of the fights that take place and some of that kind of stuff between the 2 schools that occur on the property as usual on that night, because there's so much inter-rivalry between the 2 teams. We'll be giving out pom-poms that do have the Green Dot logo on them. We've got both school colors set up, and we actually have booths. The booth is going to be set up in such a way that people who want to participate can sign our bystander pledge that says that they will be a good Green Dot bystander. And we've got step and repeat banners that are personalized to their school along with the Green Dot logo, so that they can kind of take a pride photo and share that with their schools as well. Through our Green Dot social media pages and that kind of stuff. Can't think of anything else big right off the bat, but I'm happy to answer questions and tell you if we're working on any of those things or not.
That is wonderful. You all have shared so much helpful information, and I think some really practical ways that we can work against personal violence. I know that October is Bullying Prevention Month, which is why we place this training at this specific time. So I know that you have shared some great things. I know that Green Dot is in multiple counties and in many different cities. So this has been really helpful. So what are either some questions about some things that Brian and Keith and Kelly shared, or maybe what are some takeaways? What is one kind of practical thing that you might do either in your work or your role as a volunteer? What is something you might do to kind of further some things that they've shared? So feel free to either use the chat function or unmute yourself and just kind of share verbally. So I see a question here from Rhonda, and she says, what would be the first step or contact person to get the Green Dot trainings in your school?
The easiest thing to do would be talk to the administrators at the school to get them on board, just to make sure that they're cool with implementing the program. In regards to the Green Dot program itself, there's a lady that I've worked with for several years, Darcy Folsom, and Green Dot is now under the umbrella of Altruistic. And so, but Darcy is the person who's the program coordinator, I believe is her title, for the Green Dot programming. And so they do what's called Green Dot Institute trainings. And so it's a 4-day intensive training. They have some virtual options. I'm not sure if they're doing them in person anymore, but they do college trainings and they do high school trainings. And they're also, one thing that we're waiting on is they're doing some work to create a middle school program. And so whenever that comes out, we'll be implementing that as well. But Darcy Folsom is the person at Green Dot that you would contact.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brian. And I see another question has come in from Naran Hendricks. Are there Green Dot trainings for nonprofit after-school programs? Naran shared that she is the elementary program director at Common Good. And then she further said, we have a 4th to 5th grade student council that we talk to about how to be leaders in the elementary program. So this could be good for elementary students as well.
I will say that Green Dot itself does not have an elementary based program. They feel like the power-based personal violence situations that they discuss are a little too mature for that age group. They are working on developing a little bit better of a pathway. And I do know that they worked with the Girl Scouts on developing a very specific program that is Green Dot for Girl Scouts that does approach a much younger group of students. Truthfully, I'm going to say this about nonprofit after school programs. It doesn't matter what your program is. If it's for the right age group, Green Dot can be implemented. Green Dot is, it was founded at the University of Kentucky by a lady who began writing the curriculum for the program, but now it's implemented not only at middle schools, high schools, and colleges across the country, but there are also 5 or 6 pretty large communities that themselves have started a community-based Green Dot program. So it really can be what you want it to be, other than the basic training that you have to take so that you can kind of understand the foundation of how to train others in the material. You can implement the program in your community in any way that you find would be the most beneficial, and that's what they want to encourage you to do.
That's great. That's really helpful. And that's good to know that there are things in the works for our younger students as well. I know that I work for a nonprofit that we work with starting at ages 6 years old. So we work with a lot of elementary students too. So I could see this being really helpful, starting young. So that's great. So here in Fayette County, and I imagine this might be helpful for a lot of us, who would be a good Fayette County contact for us? If you're not sure of that, I'm sure I can dig in and find that out for us.
So Demetria is probably a good place to start because
Okay.
she does work for CHI there in Fayette County. And then the other avenue I would say to take is, again, the University of Kentucky has been offering Green Dot as a program there for quite some time. So there is a lot of information available in the Lexington area about what it is and how to implement it, and maybe some potential contacts and partnerships with the university.
That's great.
And I will go ahead and put my email in the chat. And if anyone would like for me to connect them to a Green Dot program here in Fayette County, I'd be more than happy to do so.
That's great. Really good questions. Are there other questions that have come up, or maybe a takeaway that someone has?
I would, while the Green Dot program is for the school, something important that Brian said is checking in on someone to ensure that everything's okay. And that goes for everybody. So that's very important. Program that we're doing.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I know that I personally am working in the field of one-on-one community-based mentoring. So we place positive adults in the lives of kids. So I think a lot of what was shared here, I think goes with that, Carla, with checking in with our young friends. If we notice that maybe something is not okay. But I think also empowering our kids to check in with other kids at school. That if they notice another friend that is not doing okay, another kid that is feeling frustrated or feeling picked on, that how do we kind of come around, how do we empower our kids to come around other kids as well, to promote peace and to come against that personal violence. I think that was a great reminder to me for how we empower and encourage our volunteer mentors. That was really helpful.
I would throw this in there, that there is one 3-letter word, a single word that makes the biggest difference to kids in being able to feel strong enough to implement this process within themselves and within their area. And that word is why. If you see your friend do something that kind of looks mean, or you think might be a red dot and they're your friend, look at them and say, why? Why'd you do that? If you see somebody that is not your friend that does something mean, look at them and say, why? That's the easiest way to implement them thinking about what they just did and having to come up with a justifiable reason. And most of the time when they can't come up with a justifiable reason as to why they did that, then it means it's a bad thing. And so you just acknowledging it with a why makes them think, and maybe will prevent it from happening again.
Yeah, really helpful. And I see we've got a comment from Kathleen. The true story was the highlight and takeaway for me, although everything was helpful, so motivating. Yeah, absolutely. I think the power, again, I think this, Kathleen has reminded us of the power of checking in, of when, and we've all had those, all had moments, I think at some point, although some more intense than others, of feeling picked on and of feeling, having that personal violence, and of having people intervene at some level, and that power of friendship, I think, and of having that power of checking in.